He could disappear without moving an inch. Have you ever had that feeling? That sensation of being watched? A prickle on the back of your neck. A sudden chill in the air. You turn around, there's no one there. But what if someone was? What if a person could disappear right before your eyes? Not with smoke, but by simply being. Being so ordinary, so forgettable. Your mind slides right past them. This is the story of such a man. A man who could vanish in plain sight. The press would call him the Chameleon Killer. He was a whisper in a crowded room, a shadow that moved when no one was looking. People brushed shoulders with him and never remembered his face. The victims were always the same kind of people. They were the quiet ones, the ones who kept to themselves, living solitary lives on the fringes of society. They were men who had few friends, distant family, jobs that didn't require much interaction. People who could disappear for days, maybe even weeks, before anyone would sound an alarm. This was no accident. The killer chose his victims with chilling precision. He selected people whose absence wouldn't create immediate ripples, giving him the one thing he needed most time. Time to disappear again, leaving behind only a quiet, empty apartment. When the bodies were eventually found, there was always a strange sense of order. There were no signs of a struggle, no coursed entry, no chaos. The investigation was a frustrating journey into a hall of mirrors. At each crime scene, detectives would find fingerprints. But when they ran them through the national database, there was never a match. Visual emphasis, no match found. It was as if the killer didn't exist in any official record. The prints were clean, clear, and utterly useless. They belonged to a ghost. With each new victim, they would collect more prints, hoping for a connection, a link to a past crime, anything. But the results were always the same, no match found. The killer was a ghost in the system, a man without a past, without an identity. He also left behind names. John Smith, David Jones, Michael Williams, they were names designed to be forgotten. Police would trace these identities, but they always led to dead ends. The social security numbers were fake. The previous addresses didn't exist. It was a trail of breadcrumbs that led nowhere. As the number of victims grew, the police were, no closer to finding their man. They had a collection of mismatched fingerprints and a list of fake names. It was a puzzle with too many pieces that just didn't fit. A maddening mosaic of a killer who seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at once. The task force assigned to the case was working around the clock, re-examining every piece of evidence, every witness statement, every dead end. They were looking for a tiny crack in the killer's perfect facade. They knew that everyone makes a mistake eventually. The break in the case, though, came from an unexpected place. A sharp-eyed young analyst named Sarah Jenkins was reviewing the files not for the 10th time, but for the 20th. She wasn't looking at the victims. She was looking at the people who were found around the victims. Specifically, the fingerprints collected from each crime scene. The killer's prints never matched anything in the criminal database. But Sarah had an idea. A wild, improbable idea. What if they weren't trying to match the killer's prints to a criminal? What if they were trying to match them to someone else? She decided to run the fingerprints found at the most recent crime scene, the murder of a quiet accountant named Thomas Miller, against a different database. Not the criminal database, but the civil one. The database containing prints from people who applied for government jobs, licenses, or identification cards. It was a long shot. Most of her colleagues thought it was a waste of time, a rookie's fantasy. And then it happened. A hit. The system beeped, and a match appeared on her screen. The fingerprints found at the scene of Thomas Miller's murder didn't belong to a ghost. They belonged to a man named Robert Davis, a librarian in a small town, reported missing 6 months earlier. The revelation sent shockwaves through the entire investigation. It was a moment of horrifying clarity. The Chameleon Killer wasn't just a master of disguise. He wasn't just using fake names. He was doing something far more sinister, something the detectives had never encountered. He was stealing lives. After he killed his victims, he didn't just walk away. He didn't just impersonate them. He truly became them. He would take their identity, their social security number, their entire existence, and use it as his new cover. He lived as Robert Davis, the librarian, for months. He worked the job. He paid the bills. He became Robert Davis. This explained everything. It explained why the fingerprints never matched a single criminal file. The prints found at one crime scene belonged to the victim of the previous crime. When he killed Thomas Miller, he was living as Robert Davis. He left Robert Davis's fingerprints all over the apartment. Then he'd shed that skin and become Thomas Miller, move to a new city, get a job as an accountant, and continue the horrifying cycle. It was the perfect way to vanish, leaving only ghosts behind. The police finally had a method, a pattern they could understand. The killer was a parasite moving from one host to another, leaving a trail of dead bodies in his wake. Tracing the chameleon's path was a slow, painstaking descent into darkness. Each identity peeled away revealed another empty life, another echo in the void. From Robert Davis, the librarian, to Alan Grant, the truck driver, to Peter Finch, the retail clerk, each name a mask, each life stolen and discarded. With every new name, the pattern grew colder, more chilling. Quiet men, invisible to the world, erased without a sound. The trail stretched across 5 states in nearly a decade, always just out of reach, always one step ahead. It finally led to a forgotten town in the rural Midwest, a place where memories fade and strangers go unnoticed. The last identity, Samuel Jones, had vanished there 10 years before. After that, the trail went cold, as if swallowed by the shadows. Investigators scoured records, searching for the original host, the first life the chameleon ever claimed. After weeks of digging, they found a name. But it was only a name carved in stone. Daniel Hoffman. Young, alone, no family, no friends. A ghost long before he disappeared. He drifted through his own life, unseen. One day he was simply gone. So complete was his absence, no one noticed for months. His name appeared on a tombstone, killed in a car accident, they said. But the truth was lost in confusion, and the survivor took his place. The real Daniel was buried. The other man, nameless and forgotten, slipped into the world wearing a dead man's skin. In the chaos, the authorities never realized the mistake. The chameleon was born from a clerical error, a man erased. A man reborn. He vanished into the world, faceless, untraceable, the perfect predator hiding in plain sight. And so the chameleon faded, not with a bang, but with a whisper, leaving only empty places and unanswered questions behind. But sometimes, late at night, when the world is quiet, you might feel a presence, a shadow that lingers just out of sight. So, if you ever sense eyes watching from the dark, remember, the Chameleon Killer was never caught. He could be anyone. He could be anywhere. Whisper, even now. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.